I drove down to my mom's place outside Atlanta for MLK weekend, because that's what you do when you're the stable one in the family. I had just wrapped up a long week at Fort Eisenhower. Cyber readiness briefings, signal training, updates, the usual stack of paperwork that somehow multiplies overnight. A 3-day weekend felt like a good time to check in, eat something that didn't come from a dining facility, and remind my mother I was still alive. Lydia was already there when I pulled into the driveway. Her car was backed in like she was ready to leave fast if needed. That should have told me something. Inside, everything looked normal. My mom was in the kitchen. Lydia was at the counter scrolling on her phone, looking tense in that dramatic way she always had. Not sad, not stressed, just waiting for an audience. We made it about 15 minutes before she got to the point. She said she had a short-term opportunity. Real estate deal. Needed fast capital. 48 hours max. She leaned on the counter and looked at me like I was the only ATM in a 50-mile radius. How much, I asked. Just let me use your credit card. I'll pay it off before the cycle closes. Just that word always comes first. I didn't answer right away. I knew the pattern. Over the past 3 years, I had just helped her with rent. Just covered a car repair, just floated her until closing. The total was a little over $22,000. Not one full repayment. I told her no. No speech, no lecture, just no. She blinked like I had mispronounced something. You can't even help your own sister. I reminded her I had already helped. More than once. I also told her I was up for promotion this year. My finances had to stay clean. No unnecessary debt. No co-signed anything. No weird transactions. She rolled her eyes at that. You think wearing that uniform makes you better than us? That line always comes out when she runs out of logic. I told her this wasn't about better. It was about responsible. She pushed off the counter, grabbed her coffee mug, and stepped closer. You make 6 figures. You can't swipe a card for your family. It wasn't about the money. It was about the pattern. She had a foreclosure notice taped to her condo door 2 months ago. I knew because I'd seen the photo online before she deleted it. I said no again. That's when she threw the coffee. It wasn't a dramatic wind-up. It was fast. A short arm motion. The mug stayed in her hand. The liquid didn't. It hit my chest and collarbone, hot enough that my skin reacted before my brain did. I stepped back. The smell hit first. Burned fabric and coffee. My mom gasped. Lydia stood there breathing hard like she'd just proven something important. You don't get to act superior in my life, she said. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I looked down at my shirt already soaking through. My skin felt tight and sharp at the same time. I grabbed my keys. My mom called my name. Lydia didn't apologize. I drove straight to urgent care. The nurse didn't ask many questions beyond the standard form. I marked family altercation and left it at that. The doctor examined the area and confirmed a superficial second-degree burn. Not hospital-level serious, but enough to blister if untreated. You'll want to keep this clean, he said. It could scar if you're not careful. That word stuck with me. I took photos before they dressed it. Clear images. Date stamp visible. I sat in my car afterward and stared at my phone. A lot of people in that situation would call a friend. Or call back and scream. Or text something that would feel good for about 12 seconds. Instead, I opened my email. As a major with a TS/SC eye clearance, there's something you learn early. If something can become leverage, it will. Family drama doesn't stay private if someone decides to weaponize it. And Lydia had just shown me she was willing to escalate. I drafted a short message to my company commander requesting a time to report a personal incident involving minor assault and potential financial dispute. I attached nothing yet. Just flagged it. Then I texted my first sergeant. Need to self-report a family altercation. Minor injury. Nothing criminal on my end. He responded within 5 minutes. Call me. I did. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't dramatize it. You did the right thing by calling, he said. Document everything. Get medical paperwork. Send me copies tomorrow. That was it. No sympathy speech, just protocol. When I got back to my apartment that night, the burn had started to sting more. I cleaned it again, changed the dressing, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. I logged into my credit monitoring account out of habit. I check it once a month anyway. Promotion boards don't care about your feelings. They care about patterns. That's when I saw it. A hard inquiry I didn't recognize. Dated 4 months earlier. I leaned closer to the screen. Retail credit account. Open. Balance listed. My stomach didn't drop. It tightened. I clicked into the details. Store location, Atlanta metro area. I hadn't opened any new accounts. Not in years. The address associated with the account wasn't mine. It was Lydia's condo. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then leaned back in my chair. The coffee on my shirt had been impulsive. This wasn't. I picked up my phone and opened the banking app to confirm the account number. It matched, and the balance wasn't small. I zoomed in on the transaction history and felt my jaw tighten. $8,460. Furniture, electronics, a premium mattress set. The purchase date stretched back 4 months. Minimum payments made twice, then nothing. The account had my name on it, my social security number, my credit profile. The billing address was Lydia's condo. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I didn't curse. I pulled out a legal pad and started writing dates. 4 months ago, she had stayed at my place for 6 weeks after a deal fell through. She had used my guest bathroom, my Wi-Fi, my home office desk while I was on base. I wrote that down too. I called the number on the back of my primary credit card and asked to be transferred to the fraud department. I kept my voice steady, gave them the account number, confirmed I did not open the retail line, confirmed I did not authorize anyone else to open it. They flagged the account immediately and started a formal investigation. Standard timeline 30 to 45 days. They advised me to file a police report to strengthen the claim. I thanked them and ended the call. Before doing anything else, I logged into Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion and froze my credit. All 3. It took less than 10 minutes. Then I opened my Army email and attached the urgent care documentation to the message I had drafted earlier. I added one more line. Additional concern, possible identity theft involving immediate family member. Police report pending. I sent it. By 700 Monday morning, I was in my commander's office. He closed the door and let me walk through everything without interruption. The coffee, the injury, the fraudulent account. Did you authorize her at any point to use your information? He asked. No, sir. Have you co-signed anything recently? No, sir. He nodded once. You're in the promotion zone this year. We keep this clean and documented. You did the right thing reporting early. That word again. Early. If Lydia tried to flip this claim, I owed her money claim. I agreed to something informal. The timeline would protect me. I left his office and headed to the military police desk on post. Technically, the fraud happened off base, so they directed me to file with the local county department. But they documented my statement as well. The Fulton County officer I spoke with later that afternoon asked the standard questions. Do you suspect anyone? I gave him Lydia's name. No hesitation. He didn't react. Just wrote it down. Any access to your documents. She stayed at my residence last year. Had physical access to my desk. He nodded. We'll need copies of your credit report and the fraud affidavit from the bank. I sent everything before the end of the day. That evening, my phone lit up. Lydia. I let it ring. She texted instead. Did you seriously report that card as fraud? I didn't answer. Another message. You're going to ruin my life over furniture. Furniture. That's how she framed it. I typed one sentence. You opened credit in my name. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. You owe me for everything I've done for this family. I set the phone face down. The next morning, my mom called. Her voice had that tight edge she gets when she's trying to sound neutral, but has already chosen a side. Lydia says you're pressing charges. I filed a fraud report, I said. She thought you knew. She used my social security number. She's under a lot of stress. Foreclosure stress. Debt collector stress. Lifestyle maintenance stress. I kept my voice even. So am I. I'm in a promotion cycle. There was a pause. Well, maybe you two can work it out without police. Work it out. That phrase usually means you absorb the damage quietly. I'm not withdrawing the report, I said. She exhaled sharply and hung up. By Wednesday, the situation had already shifted. A post on Facebook started circulating among extended family. Lydia didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. Some people think a uniform makes them untouchable. Financial abuse in families is real. Comments rolled in from cousins who had no idea what they were talking about. Wow, that's sad. Money changes people. I took screenshots, all of it. Then came the email. Not to me. To my brigade commander. Anonymous account, no signature. The subject line read, Financial misconduct by Major A. Mercer. The body accused me of hiding offshore accounts and exploiting family members for tax advantages. It included 2 screenshots of bank statements badly edited, but at first glance convincing enough to trigger questions. My commander forwarded it directly to me and the security manager. Expect contact, he wrote. That afternoon, I got the calendar invite. Security Review Interview. Guideline F. Financial Considerations. That's the category that covers debt fraud, unexplained wealth gambling, things that can make someone vulnerable to coercion. The timing was precise. Promotion board convenes in August. It was April. If a clearance review is unresolved when the board meets, your file can be set aside. Not denied, just delayed. And delay at my level can mean never. I sat in my office staring at the invite for a full minute. This was no longer about coffee. It was about someone trying to create leverage. I opened my personal finance folder on my encrypted drive. Every tax return, every W-2, every brokerage statement. My finances were boring, predictable, documented. That's how I like them. I forwarded the anonymous email to the Fulton County detective handling the fraud case. Adding context, I wrote. Then I printed the Facebook posts and added them to a growing file on my desk. My first sergeant stopped by before close of business. Heard about the clearance interview, he said. Yes, First Sergeant. He leaned against the door frame. You're squared away. Yes, good. Because if this is retaliation, it's sloppy. I gave him a look. He shrugged. People get emotional. They forget the system runs on paperwork. Paperwork. I thought about the coffee again. The heat. The impulsive anger. That was emotional. Opening a line of credit under my name 4 months earlier wasn't. The next morning, I logged back into the retail account portal using the temporary access code the bank had given me. There was a shipping confirmation attached to the first purchase. Delivery completed. Signed for. The signature wasn't mine. It was Lydia's. I downloaded the delivery confirmation and saved it in 3 different folders. The signature was clear. Not a scribble. Not something you could argue was a mistake. It was Lydia's full name in her usual dramatic looped handwriting. The date matched the first charge on the account. The shipping address was her condo in Midtown Atlanta. I didn't feel shocked. I felt organized. I printed the confirmation, added it to the file on my desk, and wrote the timeline across the top page in block letters. Account opened. 4 months ago. Furniture delivered. 3 days later. 2 minimum payments, then missed. Coffee incident. 3 weeks ago. Fraud report filed. Patterns matter, especially when someone tries to claim confusion. The detective from Fulton County called me that afternoon. We've requested subscriber information tied to the IP address used to open the account, he said. That takes time, but the delivery confirmation helps. He asked if I wanted to pursue charges if evidence confirmed identity theft. Yes, I said. There was a pause on the line like he expected hesitation. Understood, he replied. Given the amount, it could be charged as a felony. That number over $5,000 moves a case from bad decision to criminal record in Georgia. I hung up and sat back in my chair. Not because I was unsure, because I understood what that meant long term. Felony convictions don't disappear. They don't fade with family forgiveness. My phone buzzed again. Lydia. This time I answered. You really went to the police, she demanded. Yes, it's a store card. People share cards all the time. I didn't share mine. You're acting like I stole something. You opened credit under my social security number. Silence for a second. You're blowing this up because I embarrassed you, she said. I let that sit. The account was opened 4 months ago, I said evenly, before the coffee. That shut down the angle she was trying to push. You knew I was struggling, she snapped. I knew you were spending. She hung up. An hour later, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in my living room with her purse still over her shoulder like she didn't plan to stay long. Lydia says she thought you agreed, she began. I have a signed delivery confirmation, I said. For furniture. For $8,000. My mom shook her head slowly. She thought you'd understand. I understand exactly what happened. She walked toward my kitchen table and looked down at the stack of printed documents. You're building a case against your own sister. I'm protecting my career. That word landed hard. My mom looked up at me. She didn't think it would go this far. She opened the account months before the fight. That detail changed the air in the room. It removed the argument that this was an emotional reaction. It made it deliberate. My mom's tone shifted, softer. If she apologizes, will you drop it? This isn't about apology. She'll lose everything. I held her gaze. That was her decision. She left without hugging me. The next morning at PT formation, I kept my focus on cadence and timing. My soldiers didn't need to know anything was happening. From the outside, nothing was. Inside, the clearance review process had already begun moving. I received a formal notice from the security manager requesting financial documentation for the past 2 years. Standard procedure when allegations surface. I compiled bank statements, tax returns, brokerage summaries, mortgage documents, proof of credit freeze, police report, fraud affidavit. When you've lived within your means for 15 years, assembling your financial history isn't stressful. It's just time-consuming. I submitted everything by the deadline. Later that afternoon, I received a notification from the retail credit issuer. Investigation update: preliminary findings suggest unauthorized account activity. Account frozen permanently pending law enforcement coordination. That language matters. Unauthorized. Not disputed. Not unclear. I forwarded the email to the detective. By evening, Lydia's Facebook post had escalated. Some people care more about rank than family, she wrote. Imagine choosing paperwork over blood. Relatives chimed in again. Sympathy, outrage, assumptions. I took more screenshots. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was accusing me of choosing paperwork while being undone by paperwork. 2 days later, the detective called again. We've confirmed the IP address used to open the account originated from the service registered to your sister's condo, he said. We're preparing the warrant package. My chest tightened not with doubt, but with the weight of finality. Understood, I replied. Just so you're aware, he continued. Once this moves forward, it's out of your hands. It already was. That evening, Lydia sent one final text. If I go down for this, I'm not going alone. There was no detail attached, no explanation. I read it twice. Threats don't have to be specific to be effective. In the military, vague allegations can be just as damaging as real ones if they reach the right inbox. I forwarded the text to my commander and the security manager without commentary. Documentation beats emotion every time. The following week, I walked into the clearance interview room in full uniform, not as a statement, just because that's what I wear to work. The investigator across from me had a thin folder in front of him. We've received additional anonymous correspondence, he said. He slid 2 printed pages across the table. They were the edited bank statements Lydia had attached in her email. Offshore accounts, suspicious transfers, fabricated numbers. He looked up at me. Can you explain these? I didn't touch the pages. They're fake, I said. I slid my real bank statements across the table and let the numbers speak for themselves. The investigator compared the formatting first, then the routing numbers, then the transaction codes. He didn't look surprised. He looked patient. These alleged offshore transfers, he said, tapping the fake printout, don't correspond to any known financial institution. They won't, I replied, because they don't exist. He asked about my relationship with the person I suspected of sending the anonymous complaint. My sister, I said. She's under investigation for identity theft involving my credit. He made a note. Any history of financial distress on your end? No. Outstanding debt, mortgage, auto loan, both current. He flipped through my submitted documentation. Everything aligned. Income matched tax returns. Brokerage accounts were transparent. No unexplained cash flow. When did the family dispute begin, he asked. 4 months before the assault, I said. That's when the fraudulent account was opened. That detail shifted the narrative from heated argument to premeditated fraud. He nodded once and closed the folder. We'll complete our review. Continue your duties as normal. That's the Army way of saying nothing is resolved yet. Outside the building, the Georgia heat felt heavier than usual. Not because I was nervous, because I knew the next few weeks would define the direction of my career. Clearance issues don't explode overnight. They sit quietly. They get flagged. They wait for promotion boards. Back at the office, I drafted a memo for record summarizing the interview and attached it to my personal file. Not because anyone asked, because I prefer redundancy. By the end of that week, the Fulton County detective called again. We're moving forward, he said. The warrant for arrest has been approved. The words landed calmly. When I asked, within the next few days. It's routine. Routine. There's nothing routine about hearing your sibling is about to be arrested. I didn't call my mom. I didn't warn Lydia. The system was in motion. Saturday morning, my phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. It was my mother. They came to her condo, she said, voice shaking. Police. I closed my eyes for a second. Is she safe? I asked. They put her in handcuffs. That's procedure. She's crying, Abby. I stayed silent. She says this is your fault. It's not. There was nothing else to add. By Monday, the arrest record was public. Felony identity theft. Fraudulent use of a credit instrument. Bond set. I went to work like normal. During lunch, a coworker mentioned seeing something about a Mercer in the local news blotter. I shrugged it off. Mercer isn't exactly rare in Georgia. The Real Estate Commission sent Lydia a notice of administrative review within a week. Any felony charge tied to financial misconduct triggers automatic evaluation. Her license was placed under temporary suspension pending the outcome of the case. That meant no commissions, no listings, no closings. Foreclosure proceedings on her condo didn't pause for sympathy. My mom called again that evening. They suspended her license, she said, like I had personally pulled the lever. That's standard, I replied. You could have handled this privately. She opened credit under my social security number. She panicked. She planned. That word hung between us. Silence followed. On post, the clearance review continued quietly. I was notified that additional verification of the fraudulent bank statements was underway. The investigator had already identified inconsistencies in formatting and metadata. Forgery, when done emotionally, leaves fingerprints. 2 weeks later, I was called back for a brief follow-up interview. The investigator had both sets of documents laid out side by side. We've confirmed the altered statements originated from an IP address linked to your sister's residence, he said. I nodded once. He looked directly at me. You understand that knowingly submitting falsified documents to the Department of Defense can carry serious penalties. Yes. Did you provide these to anyone? No. He closed the folder again. Based on current findings, there is no adverse information regarding your financial conduct. That was the first real exhale I allowed myself. No adverse information. It didn't mean the review was complete. It meant the direction was clear. Meanwhile, Lydia's situation escalated. Her attorney negotiated with the district attorney's office. Given the amount involved and lack of prior convictions, a plea deal was offered, one felony count reduced from multiple charges, probation instead of incarceration, restitution in full. My mom relayed the offer to me as if I needed to approve it. She says she'll accept, she said. That's between her and the court. She's asking if you'll speak to the prosecutor. I won't. I didn't push for harsher consequences. I didn't request leniency. I stayed out of it. That choice wasn't revenge, it was distance. The plea hearing took place in early July. Lydia stood before the judge and entered a guilty plea to felony identity theft. 3 years probation. Restitution of $8,460 plus fees. Mandatory financial counseling. The judge made one comment that stuck with me, according to my mother. Trust within families is not an exemption from the law. The Real Estate Commission followed up within weeks. After administrative hearing, her license was revoked permanently. Her appeal was denied. By late summer, foreclosure was finalized. The condo sold at auction. Wage garnishment began shortly after to satisfy restitution. At Fort Eisenhower, promotion board results were still pending. Clearance review status changed to closed. I received the official memorandum in my inbox on a Thursday afternoon. No derogatory findings. Clearance maintained. I printed the document and placed it in my records folder. Outside my office window, soldiers were moving between buildings under the Georgia sun routine, continuing like nothing had shifted. Inside, everything had. My phone buzzed again. A notification from the Army Human Resources Command. Promotion list release scheduled for 900 tomorrow. I locked my screen and went back to work. I refreshed the Human Resources Command page at 8:59 a.m. The list posted exactly at 900. I didn't scroll immediately. I let the page load fully, then searched my last name. Selected. Lieutenant Colonel. There wasn't a rush of emotion, just a steady, quiet confirmation. 15 years of clean records field exercises, long deployments, and late-night briefings don't end in fireworks. They end in one word on a PDF. I closed the browser and stood up for the morning meeting like nothing had changed. News travels fast on post. By lunchtime, my commander shook my hand and said, "Well earned." My first sergeant nodded once and said, "Paperwork wins again." He wasn't wrong. While my promotion went public, Lydia's sentencing paperwork finalized in the county system. Felony conviction entered. Probation terms documented. Restitution payment schedule established. 2 trajectories moving in opposite directions. Later that week, I received a call from the Fulton County Probation Office. They wanted to confirm restitution details and verify the financial impact on me. It's been cleared with the credit agencies, I said. The account shows as fraudulent. My credit score recovered. Understood, the officer replied. Garnishment begins next pay cycle. Wage garnishment isn't dramatic. It's administrative. A percentage deducted before you ever see the money. Lydia's new job, an entry-level administrative assistant position at a logistics warehouse, paid less than half what she used to make in real estate commissions. Garnishment hit immediately. My mom called that evening. She can't afford her apartment, she said. She lost her condo, I replied. She's staying with me for now. I didn't comment. She says you're celebrating. I went to work. She saw the promotion announcement online. The Army publishes names publicly. It's not personal. It's standard transparency. My mom's voice softened. She feels like you won. I looked at the printed promotion memorandum on my desk. This wasn't a competition. It feels like one. That might have been the most honest thing she'd said in months. The next morning at PT, one of my captains asked casually how things were going with that family situation. Word always spreads in controlled environments like a base. Handled, I said. He didn't press. Back in my office, I reviewed the updated security clearance memorandum one more time. Closed. No adverse findings. No flags attached to my file. In the military, that line matters more than public opinion. Meanwhile, Lydia's probation required monthly check-ins, financial counseling, and strict reporting of income changes. Any missed payment could trigger violation proceedings. The Georgia Real Estate Commission updated their public database to reflect permanent revocation of her license. A quick search of her name now showed disciplinary action. Revoked. That kind of digital footprint doesn't fade quickly. One afternoon, I received a text from Lydia. First direct message since the plea hearing. You got what you wanted. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before responding. I wanted my identity back. 3 dots appeared. You could have handled it inside the family. You handled it inside my credit file. No reply after that. Weeks passed. Routine resumed. I attended leadership briefings, signed off on training reports, and started transition paperwork for my rank change ceremony. At home, life stayed quiet. No more unexpected visits. No more angry calls. One Sunday, my mom invited me over for dinner. I hesitated but went. Lydia was at the table when I arrived. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Just contained. There were no dramatic confrontations, no shouting. She avoided eye contact. Dinner moved in careful conversation. Weather, work, my upcoming pinning ceremony. At one point, my mom mentioned restitution payments. She's trying, she said. I nodded. That's good. Lydia finally spoke. You think this makes you better than me? I set my fork down. No. Then why didn't you just let it go? Because letting it go would have cost me everything. That was the closest we came to a direct exchange. After dinner, as I was leaving, Lydia stepped outside behind me. You know, people think you're cold, she said. I shrugged lightly. People think a lot of things. You don't even look angry. I'm not. She studied my face like she was searching for something regret, maybe. You ruined my career, she said quietly. You did that. There was no anger in my voice, no sarcasm, just a fact. She didn't argue. I drove back to my apartment under the late Georgia sunset windows, down air warm. Promotion paperwork had already moved to the next stage. My pinning ceremony was scheduled on post in early fall. Invitations optional. Attendance not required. I didn't send one to Lydia. The next pay cycle, I received confirmation from the probation office that the first garnishment payment had processed successfully. A small deposit appeared in my account marked restitution. It wasn't about the money. $8,000 spread over years doesn't change my life, but it changes hers. At work the following week, my name was added to the updated command roster with my new rank. Lieutenant Colonel Abigail Mercer. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just an updated line in a database that tracks service members across the world. I closed my laptop at the end of the day and locked my office. The burn scar on my collarbone had faded to a thin, barely visible line. Some marks heal quietly, others stay on record. I watched the Georgia Real Estate Commission database update in real time. Her license status changed from revoked pending appeal to simply revoked. No appeal in process. No review scheduled. Final. The listing history attached to her name still showed old properties she had once sold: condos with skyline views, renovated bungalows, trendy townhomes. Now the profile ended with a disciplinary notation tied to a felony involving financial fraud. Real estate depends on trust. Once that's gone, there's not much left. That same week, foreclosure proceedings on Lydia's condo officially closed. The property had been auctioned 2 weeks earlier. I confirmed it through public county records. Sold below market value. Standard outcome when you fall behind and don't recover. She moved into my mom's guest bedroom. I didn't hear that from Lydia. I heard it from my mom, who framed it like a temporary situation. She just needs time to get back on her feet, she said over the phone. She has probation for 3 years, I replied. That doesn't mean she can't rebuild. She can rebuild, just not the same way. My mom sighed. You sound like a lawyer. I sound like someone who reads documents. Silence on the line. At Fort Eisenhower, life didn't pause for family drama. I was in transition between rank change paperwork and reassignment discussions. As a newly selected lieutenant colonel, expectations shift. You're no longer proving competence. You're expected to produce it. In one briefing, a senior officer joked about how the only real power in the Army comes from signatures and forms. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I knew exactly how accurate that was. Outside the gate, Lydia's income was now limited to an hourly wage from the warehouse job she'd taken. Garnishment reduced that further. Probation required monthly proof of employment and payment history. Missed payments would violate terms. Violation would trigger a hearing. Judges don't enjoy repeat paperwork. One afternoon, I received a formal notice from the probation office confirming compliance for the first month. It was addressed to me as the victim in the case. That's the legal term. Victim. I didn't feel like one. I filed the notice and went back to reviewing training readiness reports. 2 weeks later, my mom asked if I could meet for coffee. Neutral territory this time. Public place. No living room tension. She looked tired. She's applying for apartments, she said. Most landlords run background checks. They do. She can't qualify. She has a felony involving fraud. She's your sister. Yes. That was the entire exchange in 2 words. My mom leaned back in her chair. I thought once you got your promotion, things would settle. They have, I said. Not for her. That wasn't my goal. She stared at her cup. She feels like you wanted her to fall. I wanted her to stop. There's a difference. One is revenge. The other is boundary. She nodded slowly, like she was turning that over in her mind. Back on post, my pinning ceremony date approached. Invitations were optional. I kept it small: command staff, a few close peers, my first sergeant. No extended family. Word still reached them. Lydia texted again. So you're officially a lieutenant colonel now? Yes. Congrats. It was the first neutral word she'd used in months. Thank you, I replied. There was no sarcasm in either message. Later that week, probation records reflected the second garnishment payment. Smaller than the first because of overtime adjustments. The restitution total began decreasing slowly. Numbers moving downward are satisfying in a very quiet way. I didn't celebrate it. I noted it. In September, I attended a leadership seminar on post. The speaker talked about accountability in command roles. Leaders who avoid small corrections create large failures, he said. That line stayed with me longer than I expected. Lydia's situation wasn't about one coffee incident. It wasn't even about one credit card. It was about years of small, uncorrected behavior. Entitlement that went unchecked because someone always absorbed the cost. This time I hadn't absorbed it. That changed the equation. By early fall, Lydia's appeal period for the real estate license officially expired. The revocation status locked in permanently. Reinstatement would require years' hearings and proof of rehabilitation. Most people don't attempt it. She started applying for administrative roles that didn't require licensing or financial clearance. Warehouse scheduling, reception work, temp agency placements. Her income stabilized at a lower level. Probation meetings continued. One evening she called instead of texting. I'm not asking for money, she said immediately. That's good. I just need to know something. I waited. Do you think I'm a bad person? That wasn't a legal question. It wasn't tactical. It was personal. I think you made a criminal decision, I said. That's not what I asked. I'm not qualified to define your character. She exhaled slowly. You don't even sound angry. I'm not. That part was true. Anger burns fast. Documentation lasts. After the call ended, I stepped onto my balcony and looked out over the parking lot lights below. Georgia humidity still hung in the air even in late September. My rank change ceremony was scheduled for the following week. The burn scar had faded to almost nothing. The felony conviction hadn't, and neither had the boundaries I put in place. I adjusted the new rank on my chest and checked the alignment in the mirror before heading to formation. Lieutenant Colonel. The weight wasn't physical. It was expectation. Responsibility expands with rank. Excuses shrink. The ceremony itself was straightforward. My commander read the promotion order. My first sergeant pinned the new oak leaves in place. A few handshakes, a couple of quiet congratulations. No speeches about family. No references to personal battles. Just service recognized. Afterward, I returned to my office and opened my laptop like it was any other Wednesday. On the civilian side of my life, Lydia's probation compliance record updated monthly. I had access to notifications because I was listed as the reporting party in the case. 3 months into probation, she missed a restitution payment. I received the alert before she told me. Probation requires immediate contact after a missed payment. If not corrected quickly, it can trigger a violation hearing. Later that evening, my mom called. She had her hours cut, she said. It was a mistake. Payroll issue. Probation doesn't care about payroll issues, I replied. She's fixing it. I hope so. My mom's voice lowered. You don't have to keep watching this. I'm not watching. I'm notified. There's a difference. 2 days later, the missed payment was corrected. Garnishment processed retroactively. Violation avoided. The system doesn't run on sympathy. It runs on consistency. Meanwhile, public records tied to Lydia's name continued to populate. Felony conviction. License revocation. Civil foreclosure. Restitution schedule. Background checks are thorough when they involve financial roles. One Saturday afternoon, she showed up at my apartment without calling. I opened the door and saw her standing there in jeans and a plain t-shirt, no designer purse, no polished presentation. I'm not here to fight, she said. Then don't. She stepped inside but stayed near the door like she wasn't sure she belonged there. I had an interview yesterday, she said. Office admin position. They ran a background check. I didn't respond. They called this morning. Said they can't move forward. Because of the felony, I said. Yes. The word came out small. She looked around my apartment, the framed promotion certificate on the wall. The neat bookshelf, the absence of clutter. You don't look different, she said. Same as always. I didn't change my behavior. You changed mine. No, I said calmly. The court did. She shook her head. You pushed it there. I reported fraud. That's not the same. It is when the evidence is real. She sat down on the edge of my couch, hands clasped together. I thought you'd drop it once things got serious. That would have put my clearance at risk. You care more about clearance than family. I care about integrity. There was no dramatic pause. No raised voices. Just 2 adults stating positions. She leaned back and looked at the ceiling. I can't get hired in anything that handles money, she said. Even temp agencies ask about felony convictions. That's how background checks work. I didn't think it would follow me like this. That's what criminal records do. She let out a slow breath. You're not even gloating. Why would I? Because you won. I didn't respond to that framing. After a minute, she stood up. I don't need money, she said again. I just needed to see if you felt anything. I do, I said. What? Clarity. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once and walked out. At work the following week, I conducted a leadership counseling session with a junior officer who had failed to report outside employment. Minor issue. Correctable. He tried to downplay it. It wasn't a big deal, he said. It becomes one if ignored, I replied. Accountability scales. Back in the civilian world, Lydia found steady employment at a shipping company handling logistics documentation. No financial authority, no signing privileges, just data entry and scheduling. It paid less than her old commission checks, but it was stable. Garnishment continued automatically. Restitution balance dropped incrementally. Public perception shifted slowly, too. Extended family stopped commenting online. No more passive-aggressive posts about loyalty or blood ties. Silence replaced outrage. One evening, my mom invited both of us over again. This time, the conversation stayed neutral. Weather, work schedules, grocery prices. At one point, my mom mentioned my promotion in front of Lydia. She worked hard for it, my mom said. Lydia nodded. I know. There was no resentment in her tone, just recognition. Later, as I helped clear the dishes, my mom spoke quietly. She's different, she said. She has to be. Do you ever regret how far it went? I rinsed a plate and set it in the rack. No. Not even a little. No. She studied me for a second, then gave a small nod. Back at my apartment that night, I reviewed the latest restitution statement. Balance lower than last month. Not by much. Enough to show progress. I closed the file and leaned back in my chair. The coffee stain had long since washed out of the shirt I was wearing that day. The burn mark faded to a thin line you could only see in certain light. The felony record, though, remained searchable. And so did my promotion order. Both documents existed in public databases separated by a few miles and a handful of choices. I shut down my laptop and turned off the lights. Routine tomorrow. PT at 600. Briefing at 900. The system keeps moving whether you respect it or not. I signed the final acknowledgement for my promotion orders and forwarded a copy to my branch manager before heading into the morning briefing. Rank changes your calendar before it changes anything else. More meetings, more oversight, less room for mistakes. During the operations update, I listened to reports on signal readiness and cyber vulnerability assessments, nodding where needed, asking direct questions where gaps appeared. From the outside, everything looked steady. Inside, I was aware of how close that promotion had come to being delayed. Clearance reviews don't show up on public lists. They show up quietly in files. If mine had remained open when the board convened, the outcome might have been different. Paperwork doesn't shout. It waits. Later that week, I received an official memorandum closing the entire inquiry process, both the anonymous allegations and the related financial review. The language was dry. No adverse findings, no further action required. That sentence is the military equivalent of a full exhale. I printed the memorandum and placed it in my permanent records binder. On the civilian side, Lydia's probation officer conducted a routine home visit at my mom's house. Standard compliance check, employment verification, payment status. My mom mentioned it casually over the phone. They came by yesterday, she said. It felt humiliating. That's probation, I replied. She's trying to do everything right. That's good. There wasn't sarcasm in my voice, just acknowledgement. At Fort Eisenhower, I began transitioning into expanded responsibilities. As a lieutenant colonel, I now oversaw multiple company-level operations instead of one focused unit. Leadership conversations shifted from tactical details to broader strategy. During a quarterly counseling session with a junior NCO, I emphasized one point. Integrity isn't about what you can get away with. It's about what you choose not to risk. He nodded, probably assuming it was a standard leadership line. It wasn't. One afternoon, Lydia called unexpectedly. I got approved for a rental, she said. That's progress. It's small. 1 bedroom. But it's mine. That's good. They didn't ask too many questions, she added. Just employment and income. I didn't respond to the unspoken relief in her voice. Probation officer said if I keep up payments for 12 months straight, reviews get easier. That's how compliance works. She was quiet for a moment. You really think the Army would have dropped you over this? She asked. If I had hidden it, yes. She didn't argue. Clearance eligibility isn't just about innocence. It's about disclosure. Self-reporting the coffee incident and the fraud before anyone else could frame it differently protected me. You were always the cautious one, she said. I'm consistent. Same thing. Not exactly. Later that week, I attended a leadership workshop focused on ethical decision-making in high-pressure environments. A retired colonel spoke about how personal vulnerabilities become professional liabilities when ignored. Financial instability, he said, is one of the fastest ways to compromise a career. I didn't need to take notes. In the following months, restitution payments continued steadily. No missed deadlines, no violations. The probation office sent quarterly compliance updates. Each one was brief. Each one confirmed adherence to terms. The balance remaining decreased line by line. At home, I finalized paperwork for a VA-backed refinance on my mortgage. Lower rate, smart timing, stable income. Financial clarity feels different when you've seen how quickly it can unravel someone else's life. One evening, my mom invited me over again. Lydia was packing boxes in the guest room. She's moving this weekend, my mom said. Lydia looked up from a stack of folded clothes. New place, she said. Nothing fancy. I don't live fancy, I replied. She gave a small half smile. Yeah, you live organized. That wasn't wrong. We carried boxes to her car in silence. No tension. No warmth either. Just movement. As she closed the trunk, she looked at me. You didn't have to destroy everything. I didn't. You know what I mean. I enforced a boundary. She didn't argue this time. The next Monday, I received a message from the branch manager confirming my assignment extension at Fort Eisenhower. No relocation orders. Stability for at least another year. Professional momentum matters. Disruptions cost opportunities. On probation records. Lydia's employment status updated to reflect her new address and continued full-time work. Compliance marked satisfactory. The digital footprint remained unchanged. Felony conviction license revoked, foreclosure completed. That information doesn't disappear just because behavior improves. At work, I reviewed a security briefing about insider threats. One slide highlighted the most common vulnerabilities: debt, resentment, perceived injustice. I stared at that list longer than I needed to. Resentment is powerful when combined with money, but it weakens when consequences become consistent. That evening, Lydia texted a simple message: paid early this month. I responded with one word: noted. It wasn't cold. It was factual. Later, I logged into the restitution portal and confirmed the updated balance. Lower again. Numbers don't argue. They reflect action. I shut down my computer and stepped out onto my balcony. The Georgia air was cooler now. Fall settling in. On post, soldiers were finishing evening PT. Headlights moved slowly through the parking lot below. My career file was clean. My rank secure. My clearance intact. Lydia's record remained what it was: public documented, unambiguous. 2 lives adjusted by the same event. One built on prevention, the other shaped by correction. I went back inside and set my alarm for 05:30. Routine continues whether you notice it or not. I checked the restitution balance the same way I check readiness metrics, briefly without emotion. The number had dropped below 5,000. Progress looks small when it's divided into bi-weekly deductions, but consistency adds up. Garnishment doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care if the month was tight or if something unexpected came up. It takes its percentage and moves on. Lydia had now been on probation for almost a year. No violations, no missed payments, no public meltdowns. From the outside, that might look like redemption. From a legal standpoint, it was compliance. One afternoon, I received a call from an unfamiliar Atlanta number. It was a property management company. Lieutenant Colonel Mercer, the woman asked. Yes. We're conducting a background verification. Your name was listed as a personal reference for Lydia Mercer. I leaned back in my chair. I did not authorize that, I said. There was a pause. Understood. We'll note that. That was the entire exchange. I texted Lydia, do not list me as a reference. She responded almost immediately. I needed someone stable. You needed someone willing. Silence. 15 minutes later, another message came through. They denied the application anyway. I didn't reply. That week at Fort Eisenhower, I was leading a briefing on operational risk management. One slide focused on identifying predictable failure points. Patterns repeat until interrupted, I told the room. I didn't say it for dramatic effect. It was practical advice. Outside of post, Lydia's financial reality was still catching up to her. Without her real estate commissions, she relied entirely on hourly wages. After garnishment taxes and rent, there wasn't much left. My mom filled in the gaps occasionally with groceries or small cash help. I didn't comment on that. My boundary was financial separation, not emotional exile. One evening, Lydia called. I'm not asking for money, she started. I assumed. She exhaled sharply. I need advice. On what? Credit repair. That caught me off guard, not because she asked, but because she was finally using the right language. Start with consistency, I said. No late payments. No new debt. Keep utilization low. I can't get approved for anything decent. Secured card. Small limit. There was a pause. You'd really give me advice after all this. I won't give you money. Advice is free. She let out a short, almost embarrassed laugh. You're impossible. I'm consistent. That word again. A week later, the probation office sent another compliance update. 12 months complete. Status satisfactory. Certain restrictions loosen after a year. Not removed, but reviewed less aggressively. I didn't celebrate it. I acknowledged it. At work, I finalized plans for an upcoming field exercise. Logistics, communication grids, contingency planning. Systems inside systems. Accountability in the military is layered. You don't wait for collapse. You reinforce early. That night, my mom called with a different tone than usual. She's embarrassed, she said. About what? She applied for a supervisory position at the warehouse. They turned her down because of the felony. That's standard policy. She keeps saying you didn't have to take it that far. I didn't decide the charge. She thinks you pushed for it. I submitted evidence. My mom went quiet. You don't feel bad at all, she asked. I feel clear. Clear. Yes. There was a long pause before she spoke again. She told me she used to think you'd always bail her out. I know. And now? Now she knows I won't. That wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. The following month, restitution dipped below $4,000. Small victories don't need announcements. Lydia texted me a screenshot of her secured credit card approval. $500 limit. Starting over, she wrote. That's how it works, I replied. No sarcasm, no praise either. A few days later, I ran into a distant cousin at a grocery store off post. News travels, even when no one talks about it directly. Hey, I heard about everything, she said cautiously. Which part? I asked. She hesitated. The situation with your sister. It's handled. You're tough. No, I said. I'm structured. That's the difference most people miss. By late fall, Lydia had settled into her smaller apartment. My mom visited occasionally, but no longer called me daily with updates. Drama fades when there's nothing left to escalate. One evening, Lydia sent a message that surprised me. I don't hate you anymore. I stared at it for a moment before responding. That's healthy. You really never wanted to destroy me, did you? No. Then why didn't you just warn me? I did. The warning wasn't loud. It was a boundary. That weekend, I reviewed my own finances again, mortgage, current investments, steady, no unexplained accounts, clean. Financial stability doesn't happen by accident. It happens by repetition. On probation records, the restitution schedule projected full payment completion within 18 more months. 18 months sounds long until you realize how fast a year already passed. At Fort Eisenhower, my responsibilities continued expanding. Junior officers rotated under my supervision. Counseling sessions, evaluations, strategic planning. One of my captains asked how I stay calm under pressure. Prepare early, I said. Act before you're forced to. That principle applies everywhere. Later that night, I logged into the restitution portal one more time. Balance $3,872. Numbers shrinking quietly. The burn scar on my collarbone was now barely visible unless I looked closely. Consequences don't always leave visible marks. Some just change how you move forward. I stood at attention while the adjutant read my promotion order one more time for the official record. Lieutenant Colonel Abigail Mercer. No spotlight. No dramatic music. Just a formal acknowledgement that my service evaluations and record had met the standard. After the ceremony, I shook hands, thanked my commander, and stepped aside so the next agenda item could begin. The Army doesn't pause long for individual milestones. Back in my office, I placed the framed promotion certificate on the wall next to my previous awards. Not in the center, just aligned evenly. Order matters. Outside of post Lydia's probation continued quietly. Restitution payments dropped the balance to just over $3,000. No violations. No missed deadlines. Routine compliance. One afternoon, I received the quarterly probation summary in the mail. Status compliant. Payments current. Employment verified. It was almost clinical how simple it looked on paper. That evening, Lydia called. I'm almost halfway done with restitution, she said. I saw. You check it. Yes. She laughed softly. Of course you do. I monitor what affects my name. There was no resentment in her tone this time. Just acceptance. I finished my financial counseling course, she added. They made us go through budgeting exercises. Useful. Yes, she said. Embarrassing but useful. Embarrassment isn't fatal. Ignorance can be. A week later, I finalized paperwork for a small, irrevocable trust. Not dramatic, just structured. Assets allocated with clear boundaries. No informal loans. No unsecured transfers. Financial clarity protects more than money. It protects peace. My mom visited my apartment one Saturday afternoon. She hadn't been there in months. She looked around at the framed certificate and the neat stack of files on my desk. You're very sure of yourself, she said. I'm very clear. She's different now. I've noticed. She talks about consequences like they're real. They are. My mom sat down and folded her hands. You didn't destroy her, she said quietly. You corrected her. That wasn't a compliment. It was recognition. I didn't do the correcting, I replied. The system did. But you activated it. I didn't deny that. The following month, Lydia sent me a screenshot. Restitution balance, $2,945. Under $3,000 soon, she wrote. Keep going, I replied. No applause, no congratulations, just acknowledgement. At Fort Eisenhower, I led a briefing on insider threat mitigation. Financial instability remained one of the top risk factors listed. When someone asked how to prevent it, I answered plainly. Address small problems before they grow. And document everything. Documentation doesn't feel powerful in the moment. It feels tedious. But it builds protection quietly. By early winter, Lydia had maintained consistent employment for over a year. Her probation officer reduced in-person visits to quarterly check-ins. The felony remained on her record. It would for years. One evening she asked to meet in person. We chose a public coffee shop. Neutral ground. She arrived early. No designer bag. No dramatic entrance. Just a simple coat and tired eyes. I wanted to say something face-to-face, she said. I waited. I was wrong. The words weren't forced. They weren't theatrical. I know, I said. I thought you'd always cover me. I used to. She nodded slowly. I don't blame you anymore, she said. I blame myself. That's a shift most people never reach. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. I don't hate the army anymore either, she added. I didn't know you did. I hated that it made you disciplined. It didn't make me disciplined, I said. It required it. There's a difference. We didn't hug when we left. We didn't promise anything dramatic. We just walked to our cars and drove home. Later that week, restitution dropped below $2,000. Progress continues whether you announce it or not. At work, I finalized next year's operational plan and signed off on evaluation reports for officers under my command. Their careers would depend on clean documentation, just like mine had. Integrity scales upward. One night, standing on my balcony, I looked down at the parking lot lights again. Same view as months earlier. Same routine hum of traffic in the distance. The burn scar on my collarbone was nearly invisible now. You wouldn't know anything happened unless you knew where to look. The felony conviction, on the other hand, remained searchable. So did my promotion order. 2 public records. Same family, different outcomes. Lydia texted one final update before the year closed. Paid extra this month. I responded with 2 words. Good discipline. She didn't argue with that. The system had done its job. So had I. I set my alarm for 5:30 and laid out my uniform for the morning. Routine isn't dramatic. It's powerful. And it's earned. I don't tell this story because of the coffee. That part healed fast. I tell it because of the paperwork that followed. Family drama feels loud in the moment. It feels emotional, personal. But when you strip it down, it comes down to choices and consequences. I didn't win because I yelled louder. I didn't win because I had rank. I protected my name because I reported early, documented everything, and refused to absorb damage that wasn't mine. My sister didn't fall because I pushed her. She fell because she crossed a legal line and expected family to erase it. In the military, and honestly in life, integrity isn't optional. It's either consistent or it collapses. This wasn't about revenge in the dramatic sense. It was about boundaries. It was about understanding that family doesn't mean unlimited access to your finances, your reputation, or your career. The coffee was impulsive. The consequences were structured, and structure always outlasts emotion. If you connect with real family revenge stories like this, the kind rooted in accountability, military discipline, and real-world consequences, make sure you subscribe. This channel is about true stories of family drama, hard boundaries, and what happens when documentation beats manipulation. If you value integrity over chaos, you'll feel right at home here.